And now here we see us standing up, and this is indeed the stand-up game. The other 3 players have already managed to win a hand and sit down, and it's between me and the person on my left. Now on the flop, 3 Jack 7, we face a bet of €300, and basically I should now just jam the flop. And let me explain you guys why. Got a little announcement for you guys, because next to our Mechanics of Poker program and masterclasses, we have now released the Poker Ambition Academy. In this academy, you will be receiving weekly interactive webinars based on your pain points. We will be discussing all areas that you can improve in to become a more successful poker player, taught by coaches who have walked the path that you're currently walking. So if you're interested, go over to the site, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the academy. Hi there, my fellow poker players and poker playsters, if that's even a word, and welcome back to another video here at the Poker Ambition channel, in which today we're gonna do something different. We're gonna take our online poker skills to the live field, as we recently got invited to play in a live game. And the game has a couple of rules that maybe are a little bit different to a traditional game. And I wanted to quickly explain them to you guys, and then we will go into some of the highlights of the stream, as it was all recorded. If you like this video, guys, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, as this will probably also be a 2-part series, so you will know when the next series comes out. And without further ado, let's get to the rules. 4 rules. The game has 3 blinds instead of 2. We're playing 5, 10, 25. In general, live games, effectively, they will play much bigger. I think the game played more like a 25, 50, even a little bit higher, I would say, like a 35, 75 type of game. The second one is we're playing the 7 deuce game, but not only the 7 deuce game, but also the 8-3 game. So this really bumps up the action. Basically, if you win a hand with 7 deuce or with 8-3, everyone at the table has to give you €150. Okay, so that's quite a lot of blinds. Third is there will be some bomb pots, which basically means everyone throws in €100 in the middle and we go straight to the flop. So everyone plays basically 100% range, and from there, yeah, action can continue. And last but not least, we were sometimes playing a stand-up game. So if you see me stand up, then you kind of know what's going on. So that starts by everyone standing up. Cards are being dealt, and if you win the hand, you can sit down. The stand-up game continues until there's a 1 person left standing, and if that's you, you are fucked, because you have to pay everyone €150. Now, all these extra games will create some interesting dynamics, especially suddenly your pot odds can be quite good if you have a 7 deuce and 8-3 off and are, for example, the last person standing. There's basically almost 1.5k up for grabs. Okay, so that definitely incentivizes the action. This is usually why people implement these type of games, and I think it's a great way to make poker a little bit more fun. So without further ado, let's get into the first hand.
6-4 raise, 225, 225 to call, 6-5 fold.
So in this first hand, we are raising up 6 for suited from the button, and we face a very small 3-bet from the big blind. And I think we have an obvious call here. I don't think a very small 3-betting range from the big blind makes a lot of sense as a strategy, but this is actually what this person was using. Basically, it will allow me to raise call a lot of hands. He will have very little fold equity. And let's say you'd say, okay, well, now I can re-raise more hands, but actually you're opening the action again. I can come over the top and put you in a lot of trouble. So I think it's better to use a bit more of a sort of polarized strategy where you 3-bet a little bit bigger and maybe a little bit less.
Heads up to players. 6-4 bet, 225, so 25 to go.
So we face a C-bet of around half the pot. We have the 6-4 of diamonds, and there's a 5 of diamonds. So basically there's some straight flush possibilities in the future. Usually this means that I'm not really going anywhere. So that's basically what I do. I'm gonna call and see what happens. Hope to improve on turns, or that he slows down and I can steal the pot.
Hold. $6-4 bet. It's 725.
So we're in an interesting spot now. He bets close to the pot and we have a 3k stack. We bought in for the game, I think 3.5k euro. We got called quite last minute and I had to arrange some cash money. Managed to find around 7k, so I decided to not put that on the table at once, which was possible. But decided to split it into 2 bullets. So if I would get unlucky early on, I would have a second bullet so I can continue playing. But that now also means that this big bet is quite a big proportion of my stack. We don't have that much left if we do decide to call. Also, a flush draw hit the board, which actually means that our out, let's say the river is a 3 of clubs, it might not always be live. He could actually have now paired up with his 7 deuce, right? This is something that we have to take in consideration. Now, let's say he does have 8-3. Like I said, he gets a very good price on his river bluff, so I expect him to continue bluffing. So I just don't think it's a spot early on that I want to invest 725 euros to see a river. I just hoped he checked and then go from there. Also, I don't really know this player. If I would have a read that on the river he tends to give up, I might float a little bit wider here, but I don't think in this case I will do that.
See, 1 fold.
So I do indeed decide to fold.
The deuce hit.
Lupu!
Could serve 3-8, but...
And I do indeed point out that the deuce now hit with 7 deuce. He could serve 3-8, but obviously he's most likely to barrel river. His name for the people who want to follow Lupu. Lupu is a casino twitcher, if I understood that correctly. So go give the guy a follow. Next hand again, us versus Lupu round 2. We're opening king 9 suited. From the small blind. And Lupu 3 bets with pocket 5s. We have
the first hour of the game, there was no end before under 1k.
In the first what?
In the first hour, no end under 1k pot. And we counted. There was no end under 1k pot. Incredible.
Sit for bet, 250. 250 to go.
So Johan, the organizer of the game, also explained that in last night's game, there was no pot under 1k for the first hour. This is also kind of how the game was going to be played. Okay, it was quite an aggressive game and money was definitely flying around. To get back to this hand, we see Lupu 3-betting the pocket 5s, which big blind for a small blind, it's not really a hand that I would 3-bet. But now on the flop, definitely a hand that I would c-bet, and we have an easy call.
Take 1 call. Take 1 check. Take 4 bet, 425. 425 to call.
So we now face a barrel. I really like actually this barrel with pocket 5s with a spade. I could fold possibly a better hand like pocket 7s, pocket 8s, pocket 9s. And I would probably still continue a hand like ace 10 with a spade, ace queen with a spade type of holdings. So I think his barrel is really good. And I think with king 9 we still have an easy call. I mean, he can sometimes be barreling a hand like he has. So I don't think we are ever folding this hand.
Take 1 call. River.
Voilà, un peu au-dessus de mise.
Take 1 check.
We river the dream. And now obviously we'll hope that he barrels true.
Take 4 check.
De pair.
Sure.
And we have de pair, as we like to say in French. And since the game is dominantly by French people, de pair is one of the only French words that I know, and this came in quite handy at this moment. So we scoop in a nice little pot. Unfortunately, he didn't follow through. I don't think he should follow through, especially with the 8-3 missing and that being very dominant in people's ranges. I think in general, another reason why I don't think you should be 3-betting pocket 5s or 3-betting a lot in other positions with funky hands, as you will already have quite a lot of combinations of 7 deuce and 8-3 in your range.
Take 4 raise, 75.
Next hand, Lupu Wakko, round number 3. Lupu opens the button with king deuce suited. I decided to call in the small blind with queen 8 suited. There is no rake in this game, or at least there is rake, but we're paying time rake. So basically every hour we pay a certain rake to the casino, which means that everything that goes in the pot will remain in the pot, which basically allows you to be a little bit looser again I think this is very good about live games. It again incentivizes the game to play a little bit looser.
Je dis mon frérot, on se voit plus tard en soirée, ok? Ciao frérot.
Short, but
Short but intense.
short, but
First
fast.
one busted, unfortunately. Got unlucky, Mr. Lupo took all his money.
Ciao. Check.
We flop top 2
6-4 check.
and it gets checked around.
6-1 check.
And now on the turn, we have a decision. There's 3 spades on the table and we have a queen and an 8. Basically, there's 2 basic principles here. If we have top 2 pair, it's unlikely that the villain will have the top pair or the middle pair due to the blocker effects. Also, when the board is 3 spades, usually you want to play your hands a little bit more carefully. So I decided to go for a check again, mainly for these reasons.
6-3 bet, 125. 6-4 call. 125 to call.
Richard, on appelle des joueurs.
Now it's up to us, 125 to call. And Lupo calls as well on the button. He has now rivered a bottom pair. And Johan Joveral has the A7. He has the spade draw. If it was only Johan betting, I might now have just called. But I think when Lupo comes in, this is the time to raise. I think denying some equity of draws and getting some value out of draws is probably now a good idea. So yeah, that's what I decided to do.
Ok, c'est en cours, merci, super.
I make it 600 to go.
600. 600 to call. 6-3 call.
Johan calls with the flush draw. And Lupo folds.
Heads up to players.
The river is the jack. Now this is definitely not a blank. 9-10 offsuit with the 10 of spades or something could now have made a pair. If he had queen jack, he could have now made 2 pair. There's still a chance obviously that he has a better hand than me, but I do think betting is still the correct play. Usually in these kind of spots when you decide, when you're kind of in doubting, okay, yeah, but I could maybe also check and induce a bluff from a flush draw, for example, like the one that he has. But in the same time, sometimes he will have a queen that I lose value from. I think betting small is usually the way to go. So let's see if that's what we do.
6-1 bet, 500.
I make a little block bet of indeed 500. Hoping that I get called by a worse hand, maybe a hand like Jack 10 or Jack 9 with a spade that doesn't believe me, or that he maybe throws out a little bluff raise with, for example, the hand that he has. So I do intend to be bet calling, maybe depending on sizing, but 500, I have 2.7 left. I don't think I'm ever going anywhere with this hand.
Nice hand. 6-3 fold.
Johan does fold and we scoop in a nice little pot.
6-4 raise,
time to
275.
Yeah.
275 to go.
And this is actually a very interesting hand. It's get folded to Lupo, so Lupo Wakko round number 4. And Lupo raises it up to 275 euro from the small blind, and I'm in the big blind. And this is kind of where the 7 deuce and the 8-3 game comes into play. Basically, he's getting quite a good price to maybe split his range and with some part of his range use a bigger raise sizing and include 7 deuce off in there and 8-3 off. So I would say a very polarized range would make sense. Your very strong hands and a couple of trashy hands, right? Because your very strong hands obviously benefit from building a big pot now, and your very shitty hands benefit from maximum fold equity. So this is a very interesting spot. Never been in this spot before. So I'm kind of figuring out now, what do I have to do with King 9? Well, if I think his range is either very strong or quite shitty, I think King 9, I mean, it kind of depends how crazy you think your opponent is. So far, my idea of Lupo is that he was definitely splashing around and he included the Jack 8 off, which, you know, I'm not really sure, but I think it's an okay hand to throw in there. But I just thought he would be a little bit looser and King 9 would definitely still be a call. You know, maybe he would limp pocket aces some of the time, or like be a bit more trappy. This is actually something that I've seen in this game as well. So I do end up calling with a little bit of a different range in my head than if he would have just raised 3x or 4x. And let's see the flop. Ace 10 7, 2 spades. And we face a C bet.
325. 325 to call.
And now it's up to us. 325, I mean, we have a backdoor straight draw, backdoor not flush draw. So he can still have a hand like 8-3 off in his range, or a random Jack 8 off, or a random Queen 8 off. 7 deuce did make a pair, but yeah, I think this is still fine. Obviously the ace, I am a little bit concerned. He can definitely raise some ace, axe offsuit in his big raising range, but I think just calling with the position, go from there is the correct play.
Call.
The turn is a 6 of spades. Lupo does a little spade check. We are very aware that we have the spade.
C4 bet. 925.
And we now face a bet of 925 euro. Now obviously we have gained a gut shot with our hand. We have gained a flush draw with our hand. And I think there's still a good possibility that we have the best hand. Let's say he has a hand like King Queen off, King Jack off. In game I did thought that if he would split his range, but I can be completely wrong here, but hey, we have to make sort of an estimation in game. I thought that if you would split your range between a very big and a small raise sizing, I don't think King Queen off and King Jack off are gonna be in the very big raise sizing quite often. I think those hands benefit from a little bit of a smaller raise. So I thought his range was still quite polarized, including now very strong aces or a bluff. That was kind of the range that I put in on. Obviously he could have made something like a flush. He can definitely still be betting hand like ace jack, but I think we have an easy call now.
C1 call. River.
River is the deuce.
C4 check.
And Lupo thinks about it for a little while and goes for the check. Now I'm in quite an interesting scenario. I think if he would have just used a normal raise sizing pre, and if we won't play a 7 deuce game or 8-3 off game, I would now just always bet the river. I think checking and losing versus King Queen King Jack is not really a great scenario, but given the range that I gave him with the big raise sizing, and I thought it was a little bit more polarized, I thought it was more likely that he would now be checking a hand like ace jack, a 7, or he just had nothing. And I don't think an ace is always folding. I don't think even a 7 is always folding. I mean, he can put me on quite some draws like Jack 9, King Jack, Jack Queen, King Queen. There's quite some potential bluffs for my range. So I think this is a spot that my King 9, due to the fact that I thought he could be very polarized pre-flop, has actually quite a lot of showdown value.
You win, you
check.
win.
Sugar.
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
J'ai hésité à all-in river, mais...
I wouldn't have called though.
Call?
No.
yeah.
I wouldn't have
Wouldn't,
called.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
7 deuce 2 pair.
Yeah, I was trying to make you think I had 7 do 8-3.
As you can see, he was trying to make me think that he had 7 deuce or 8-3. Obviously 8-3 he probably doesn't want me to think I have, but 7 deuce was indeed 2 pair. So he should have maybe followed through. I think I have still a lot of hands like this in my range that I would fold. He was quite upset that he didn't follow through, which I definitely understand. I think with the spade and with a straight blocker, I think betting the river there is definitely the better play.
Là, j'étais trop con.
6-1 raise, 75. 75 to go.
Still tilted from the last hand. It's Lupo versus the Wakko, round number 5. I raised the button with Jack, he calls with 6-9 off from the big blind.
No, I'm tilt.
6-4 bet, 75.
You wanted to shove the river so much.
Because I want to make you think I have 7-2, 8-3, and I don't follow I don't know why at the end I don't know why.
He doesn't know why he didn't follow through. Well, if you've seen some of my last videos where I explained Jared Tendler's mental hand history, if he goes through that hand and using that strategy, he can figure out why he didn't do it and maybe not make that mistake in the future. So if this is something that you would like to learn, go back to one of the previous videos where I explained that concept. And we face a dunk bet of I think 75. And this is actually I think where I make a mistake. I should now make a very big raise. I think 500 euro is going to be the minimum. We're playing 6k, a bit over 5k effective. So I would say that that's definitely the minimum sizing we should go for.
6-1 raise.
However, I go for 300 and Lupo obviously snap calls. I was intending to overbet this flop if he wouldn't have checked, but I think if people donk bet, they're already shown a little bit of an interest in the pot. So I think we can raise a little bit bigger than if he would have just overbet. I think if he would have just checked and I overbet 300 euros, that would have been fine. So I think this is kind of a small mistake sizing wise.
C4 check. C1 bet.
3 checks, we come out firing.
150.
And we overbet
150 to go.
A bit over 1k. 1.1k I'm going for. Here as well, I think my sizing, for the people who see my Twitch streams, you know, I have like all these help things. You see the BB. I'm not really aware of my stack size here exactly, but looking at my stack size, maybe I would have liked to see me bet a little bit bigger. In general, there's quite a big compound effect on the flop already with using a wrong raise size, then on the turn with using a smaller bet size in terms of how effective your river bet is going to be and how much EV your river bet is going to have. So these are small mistakes that I think compound towards your river EV. But Lupo ain't having it, because Lupo is gonna go for the raise
50.
towards 3k if I'm not mistaken.
3050 to go.
And now it's up to us. We don't have that much left. I'm not exactly sure how much we have. The graphics here show that we're playing 3.8 while he raises to 3. So I also thought like, okay, it's going to be 1, maybe 2k more at max. We have jacks. I think this is just the time to...
I think it's just time to ship it in and go to bed.
All in?
C1 all in.
I'm all in. Lupo doesn't look too happy. We don't get a snap call, so we're quite happy about that. Actually, we're giving away a little tell here as we're leaning back, scratching our belly a little bit, and then going back into position. This is, I think, in sort of unconscious stress relief. We're playing quite a big pot. You know, you never know what this guy has.
600.
Obviously, I'm happy with my hand, but I think the release, okay, he didn't snap call, is something that you just do unconsciously, and I think it's actually a big tell. But I don't think Lupo would have picked up on that.
75. This is 1, 2, 5.
He does actually lay it down.
C4 fold.
I didn't trust you. No, I trust you. You know what? Like that, yeah.
He didn't trust me, but I did show him the jacks, so he made a good fold.
6-2 fold. 6-4 raise. 200.
Next hand we're raising the queen jack on the button, and again Lupo is in there, round number 6. Again going for a small re-raise sizing with the 5-4 suited. Again a hand, maybe 5-4 suited I would actually still throw in there, but don't go too loose with already having the 8-3 and the 7 deuce. It's probably a better strategy. He makes a little raise. I have an easy call with queen jack.
C1 fold.
We flop middle pair. And we face a check.
C4 check.
I think, especially versus this player so far, just going for a check and letting him do something funky on a later street is probably the correct play.
Check. 2 bet. 200.
He does come out with a 200 bet, and I think now we have an easy call.
C1 call.
River is a very bad card. An ace completes a straight, completes a flush, and obviously makes him an ace some of the time. He bets 500, and now it's up to us. And if you look at the board, 7 deuce is a pair, 8-3 is a pair. I also think if he had one of these hands, he's way more likely to bet the flop. So I actually thought his flop check was a little bit suspicious. He betted quite enthusiastically on both streets. And I actually decided, even though, you know, we've been playing quite crazy, that this was just a spot that he was going to have it quite often.
La fleur, tu lui dis, elle va remettre ça.
C1 fold.
Alcool aussi. Ouais, je pense que c'est pour le 5 ou le 5.
And now here we see us standing up. And this is indeed the stand-up game. The other 3 players have already managed to win a hand and sit down. And it's between me and the person on my left, rocking the green shirt, rocking the nice white-ish looking pants. We clearly have the same sense of fashion. And this is an interesting spot as, let's say, for example, I would now fold. Then basically he has a very easy raise, and especially for bigger sizing, because the rest of the players already sit down, so they're not going to pay any money anyway, where he is very incentivized to raise big and receive, not having to pay everyone 150 euros. So basically, if it's folded to him, there is an extra 600, 750 in the pot, because if he now wins the hand, he receives 150 of me, and he doesn't have to pay 150 of everyone. So basically, I want to prevent that from happening, so I would say I would just never fold a hand, and you could maybe say that limping is an okay strategy. I decided to go for a raising strategy, just hoping that sometimes I would take down the pot. Like I said, it's mainly the person that's still standing that has the decision.
Raise.
So I did open the 10-7 off, and it's now off to the person on my left with ace-5 suited. You can actually see that he's not playing that deep. He only has 1.5k left. And I think for him there's one clear correct play, and that is just to jam. It might sound a little bit weird, but you have very good equity when called. And like I said, there's an extra 750 euro in the pot. So I think that is literally the only correct play that he has there with a hand like ace-5. Let's say he has a 7 deuce here or a-3. Then there's even more money in the pot. So then I think he can definitely just jam, because there's basically 1.5k in the pot and he has 1.5k left with a lot of fold equity, and I'm raising a very big portion of my range.
It's more my back.
I hope your back will stand up, because it can be long.
275.
You know,
He doesn't need 3-bet, but goes for a small sizing, 275.
175.
1 hour. But it's so rare. In 5-handed, huh?
And yes, I will call with 10-7 off, but I don't think that is a big mistake, as I also have 750 euro extra in the pot. So I'm very much incentivized not to fold.
Bossing is a good idea.
Leave him 600 euros.
okay.
300.
Sit 2, bet 300.
Now on the flop, 3-Jack-7, we face a bet of 300 euro. And basically, I should now just jam the flop. And let me explain you guys why. Basically, for the same reason, I think he should have 3-bet jammed pre-flop. I just have okay equity when called. I have some fold equity, and there's way more money in the pot than I currently thinking. Basically, we're playing sort of a 4-bet pot type of scenario, given the fact that he only has 1.2, 1.3k left in his stack. However, unfortunately, you did see with the 10-7 off that I was aware of some extra dynamics. I guess I didn't really process it correctly in terms of pot odds, in terms of how that would affect my play, especially in terms of aggression. And I actually decided to make the call. Actually, I think he also makes a mistake by c-betting again, because I should check jam a lot, and therefore c-betting the ace-5 diamonds I think is a mistake you always want to check, or just jam yourself. So mistakes all over the place. Luckily, poker is not about playing perfect, but making less mistakes than your opponent. And this was definitely a game where I don't think I played very well, but I think my opponents also didn't play very well. Now the turn is a 9. I check.
Sit 1, check.
And here you can actually see that he didn't really think it through that much. I've colored it out, but I think he timed for 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and then decided to go for a check.
Sit 2, check.
And you can see I'm a little bit confused of what's going on. River is an 8, we make a straight, and I think we should bet very small now.
Sit 1, bet 400. 400 call.
And we actually bet 400, which I think is way too big. I think a bet of 200 would have been way better. Then we just give him such an insane price that basically he should still be calling quite a lot of hands, and therefore we can value bet a little bit wider. But it's just very hard for us to be bluffing. So I think we used a way too big sizing compared to the bluffs that we can have here in this spot. He just figured that out and fold.
Sit 2, fold.
And starts paying us. The person actually also has to sit down, has to show his hand. And he starts to pay everyone 150 euro, which he could have prevented by just jamming pre-flop.
35 minutes, les amis, pour se venger et apprécier les 150.
Sit 4, call.
Next hand, We have Lupo again in the house. Johan raising it up. Lupo going for the call, and we are going for the squeeze with the ace jack off.
6-1 raise.
To 650 euro.
Tu peux en créer aussi.
Je suis un peu comme ça, moi j'aime bien développer des carrières. C'est combien? 750?
6-4 fold. Heads up, player.
Johan gets out of the way, Lupo decides to call, and we're in position playing it through the pot. Lupo has the jack 10 off. I actually decide to go for a check here, and let me explain you why. Basically, if I bat and he raises, I would have to fold, but I do think he can still have quite a lot of funky hands in his range. And I think if I check back, I keep in some dominating hands like the hand that he currently has. I think this hand actually is a good example. Let's say I bet, he raises, I have to fold. Whereas if I just check back, I can just call a lot of turns. This is like the power of position, especially versus a more funky, aggressive opponent. Turn is an ace. Dream scenario for us. And Lupo decides to grab chips and starts repping the ace. Okay. And this is exactly what we were looking for.
750.
And now it's up to us. What do we do? Do we call or do we raise? And I'm actually counting out the chips here. And I think actually I gave away a little lifestyle here again, because I wanted to just raise and decide to get value. But then I decided that, changed my mind, even though I already had, I think, like the 2500 stacked up in front of me at the 2100. And indeed, I decided to actually just call and let him do something crazy on the river. So I don't know if he picked up on that. You can see the stacks, but I'm not gonna throw them in. I just go for a call.
6-1 fold.
The river is the ace, which is actually not a great card. I think it will not really be incentivized for Lupo to bluff. Even though actually I will now have last ace X, and he actually has great blockers in terms of the jack 10. So I think from a theoretical perspective, he has a great hand to be bluffing with. But I do think in practice, people will give up this river quite often. He does indeed check, and I now basically already know that I'm not going to make much money, as it's very likely for him to just indeed have nothing. So it was a good induce, the flop check, but now it's going to be very hard for me to pay it off. I do go for a very big bet, hoping that he does have something, maybe like 8-3, you never know. And I just hope that he puts me on a misflip flush draw on call. I don't think there's much else we can do.
6-1 bet.
I'm pretty sure you have the ace.
He's pretty sure I have the ace.
Cost 2,400. 6-4.
You have at least one ace.
At least one.
At least one.
And I did show him the ace.
Le truc de rigoler, c'est vachement. Je peux faire rigoler les gens. On fait un stream où il faut pas rigoler, ne pas rire.
This hand is a little bit funky. We have a little family pot. Everyone limps. And we have the queen 9 offsuit in the small blind. And we flop a little gutter. I decided to go for a check. I think this is not really a board that you want to be betting for way, as we don't really want to get raised. We just want to check and realize our equity. Lupo decides to go out for a little bet, which I think he's going to do with a big part of his range. He bets pot, I call. Turn is the 4 of spades. And I think this is the moment to take over the betting lead. This is actually something I would do quite exploitively. He's been very aggressive, so I think if I have a strong hand, I will just check and let him do his thing. But obviously I have queen high, and as you can see, he has king 9. So I think exploitively leading here with my bluffs versus an aggressive opponent, I think is a good strategy. So I go for a donkey, and he immediately folds, and we scoop in a nice pot. In the next hand, we're calling pocket 3s from the big blind versus under the gun open. He opened the 7 deuce, and he flops a deuce, but unfortunately for him, I flopped a set. This is trouble in paradise for Mr. Clement. I decide to follow Mr. Gavin Smith's advice.
So when you get dealt a pocket pair, try to flop a set. Play it smooth, and win all the money.
I go for a little check raise. Another little tell here, maybe. Immediately looking at his stack. Don't know if I would have done it if I had a bluff as well. So we're picking up a lot of nice little tells on ourselves. There's a deuce. I think this is a card I'm going to be checking quite often. And basically I don't have a lot of strong hands. He has the advantage in terms of 7 deuce, in terms of overpairs. I think my strongest hand is probably ace 10 and then pocket threes or pocket deuces, which is very unlikely. So I think continuing bet checking is the right play here. I check, he bets pot, which is quite a big sizing. And he actually called the check raise really fast on the flop. And my image of him so far is that he was a little bit on the nittier side. So I actually do think he is going to have a hand here quite often. But I do still just decide to call. Maybe you could make an argument here for already raising. But you know, there's still, maybe he has a hand like 4-5. Maybe he has a hand like ace-5, ace-4. That he decides to bluff me with. So, and those hands have basically 0% equity. So, I think just calling is the correct play. Now the river is an ace. And it's up to us. And now you would say, okay, we check. Which I would normally always do. But like I said, I thought that he was a little bit nittier. So I don't think he will have a lot of bluffs when the ace hits. And I thought there was a chance that he would now always check back his 10. Check back maybe a hand like ace-4 or ace-5. Obviously afraid of a set or ace-10. And I just don't think Villain was going to have a lot of bluffs in his range. He can still have jacks, queens, kings. So I actually decided to be a little greedy Dutch person. And go all in. With the pocket threes. Taking over the betting initiative. Obviously, if he would think about what my bluffs are in his range, yeah, he will not find them. I show the pocket threes and he's very unlucky with the 7 deuce, of course, as he had strips and we have a boat. So played it very funky, or as Gavin would say, played it very smooth.
It's very unlucky.
Yeah. Very unlucky. We both agreed. Another little stand-up action here. As you can see, there's 2 persons standing. I raised it up with the 7 deuce, which, and as you can see, actually the person behind me, Clement, he actually folded. Don't actually know what he folded, but I would be very wide there as we are the last 2 persons standing up. Johan is in there with the 6-8 suited. As you can see, actually, I decided to raise a little bit bigger, raise 150. Which I thought, given the fact that I'm still standing, would make sense to open a little bit bigger. General with my range, I'm not really intended to split here. If I would go back to the drawing table and come up with a splitting strategy, I think that would be good. But in game, you know, I didn't really figure that out. 3-5-10 flop, and I think now we have an easy c-bet. We can basically use any sizing here. I go for, I think, a 1/3. Basically, I'm not intending to fold to a check raise, so then it doesn't really matter if you bet a little bit smaller. He folds, and we can show the 7 deuce.
No!
And scoop in a nice little €150 from everyone. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
I just show them drunken style, and I think it's good for poker, like bring some fun and enjoyment.
The most easy game for you, like.
Merci, merci.
De rien, bah ouais.
Next hand is going to be interesting. We have a little bump pot action going on. As you can see, there was 400 in the pot. There was no pre-flop action, and Lupu has jacks on the button. And quite a lot of money in front of him. He actually got it in with aces versus kings versus Johan. He was the one with kings, but hit the king. He also busted a couple of the other guys who were at the table, coolering them quite hard. So he was doing great. We have now Clement betting out on the king, queen, 9 flop. We're not really seeing the flop yet, but the flop is king, queen, 9. And he bets out 300 in the pot of 400 in the bump pot. Lupu calling, and I call as well with the ace-9 suited with backdoors. Here we have the hands now, king, 9, queen. And the turn is a 9. Button, Lupu has jacks, and I have ace-9. I decide to actually check. I think Clement coming out betting seems quite strong for a big sizing as well. So if he continues betting, I will just continue calling. But to be honest, I'm not going to be super thrilled given how I thought he was playing. And obviously if I check, we check it towards Lupu, who can have any 10x, any jack-x as it's a bump pot, and let him do something funky again, I think is the correct play.
Check sit one.
Clement does decide to check with the king 10. And it's indeed up to Lupu with the pocket jacks. 1300 in the pot, he decides to fire out. A nice little bet of 700. And we're in an interesting spot now. I think if it was just me and Lupo heads up, I think I have the easiest call in the world. But actually now we have Clement in there as well, who've shown with 300 euros and 400 on the flop that he is interested in the pot and probably has something. So that can either be a good flush draw, or I thought it was very likely that he indeed had the hand that he had, like a hand like King 10, a hand like King Jack. So I actually decided that protecting my hand here was relevant. I think Lupo can have just a Bear King, any worst 9. And I think there's a lot of hands that I can get value from him. And I can push Clement out with some equity. We can see here that Clement has 5%, but that's because Lupo has Jacks. I obviously didn't know that. But I think King 10 versus my Ace 9 still has quite a lot of equity. So I do indeed go for the raise. Clement 6, which is again a signal that he indeed folded the hand that he didn't want to fold. Says something in French that I don't understand, but he's not happy. And now it's up to Lupo with the pocket jacks. I raised to 2500, so he bet at 700, so it's a little bit over 3x. And he is going to make the call with pocket jacks. I'm quite happy with this scenario, and actually I was just saying in my head, okay, deuce on the river please. And the poker gods listened very carefully and gave indeed the deuce on the river. This is like a dream case scenario. And now it is up to us. It shows that we have 6k left, but actually I think this is wrong. We will see afterwards. Actually, I think I have a little bit more left, but now it's basically up to me. I think we have the best hand quite often, also taking into consideration some blocker effects of the fact that Clement betted out and then Sig folded. He probably had King 10, King Jack. I thought in game that was very likely, so it's reduced that Lupo is gonna have a boat or a straight. So I think I'm just very happy with my hand. I think I'm just gonna bet big and hope to get called by a 9 or a king or even pocket jacks. So I fire out 4k. And as we can see here in the chips in front of me, I clearly still have 4k left. So I think I have more. I think I have like 8k in total. And it's up to Lupo.
Bet 4,000.
I'm not sure behind.
That moment when they ask you how much you have behind. Would I be happy if he jams? I'm not really sure. I don't think so. Really curious actually what... It's almost impossible for me to say what I would have done. But I think I would have called. He makes the correct fold.
Nice hand.
Clement's nice hand. Clearly still a little bit frustrated that he couldn't see a river.
Shows a full.
Hmm?
Shows a full.
Full house?
Yeah. No, yeah.
I wish I had a full house.
Maybe straight. Maybe 9.
Full house, straight 9. Well, that's indeed going to be my range. So Clement ranged me quite well there. And here we can see the stats. It was indeed the Lupo versus the Wakko show with a VPIP of 63% and the Wakko with 51%. So we're definitely in here to play. Like I said, the way the game was structured also incentivizes you to play a lot with the time rake, with all the games in there, and with the 3 blinds and the fact that everyone is a little bit deeper. So a very fun game to play in, I would say. How have we been doing? The Wakko has 16k, Lupo has 18k. So he's still the winner in the game. And we will see what happens in the next video. I hope you guys like this format. If you do, give the video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you will see part 2, which probably comes out next week. I want to thank you all for watching and see you in the next video.